Well, the Democrats had their shot at it, and it was all against Trump. Isn't he horrible? He was responsible for the coronavirus. He's responsible for my husband getting laid off. He's responsible for illegal aliens. He's responsible for everything bad. He's lazy. He's no good. He's terrible. And I wish people had voted for me instead of for him. And that was it. But what did they offer? The Democrats offered nothing. They have given no plan to the country and how they're going to govern. Get rid of him, but what do you put in his place? Not one vision for the future that we can find out. Well, they talked about climate change. They talked about gun control. They talked about empowering women, all themes of the Democratic platform on day 3. But most of the night was devoted, as I said, to pounding President Trump. And the vice presidential nominee, Kamala Harris, delivered the biggest blows. Eric Phillip has that.
Accepting the Democratic vice presidential nomination became secondary as Kamala Harris made her priority introducing herself to the world in a more intimate way.
I accept your nomination for Vice President of the United States of America.
Just before uttering those history-making words, Harris acknowledged it was something her late mother would never have imagined her daughter would get to say. Harris shared a bit about her life, how she and her sister were raised by a single mother who taught them to be proud to be Black and to cherish their Indian heritage, that she graduated from an HBCU and is married with 2 stepchildren who call her Mamala. All of it leading to this moment in time, which is clear to her.
Donald Trump's failure of leadership has cost lives and livelihoods. We must elect Joe Biden.
Several issues were touched on throughout the night, along with Biden's solutions, like climate change and gun violence, with the emotional story from a mother whose teen was shot in the head.
The child that I birthed is not able to live his dreams, and that hurts.
The immigration issue told through a letter to the president from an 11-year-old whose mother was deported.
Now my mom is gone, and she's been taken from us for no reason at all. Every day that passes, you deport more moms and dads and take them away from kids like me.
So go ahead and celebrate, you rabble-rouser, you rule breaker.
Also, women's empowerment, a movement some say President Trump doesn't understand.
We know what he doesn't, that when women succeed, America succeeds.
Former President Barack Obama said he not only found a VP in Biden, but a brother, underscoring what's at stake in November.
This administration has shown it will tear our democracy down if that's what it takes for them to win. I did hope, for the sake of our country, that Donald Trump might show some interest in taking the job seriously, but he never did. What I know about Joe, what I know about Kamala, is that they actually care about every American.
This crisis is on Donald Trump and the Republicans who enable him. On November 3rd, we will hold them all accountable.
Hillary Clinton urging viewers to make sure there's not a repeat of 2016 when her name was on the ballot.
For 4 years, people have told me, I didn't realize how dangerous he was. I wish I could do it all over. Or worse, I should have voted. Look, this can't be another woulda, coulda, shoulda election.
So let's fight with conviction. Let's fight with hope. Let's fight with confidence.
A long time coming, but I know change gonna come.
Kamala Harris used the term put in the work several times during her address. She said she and Joe Biden are ready to do so, but they need the American people to do so as well. And that begins at the ballot box. Eric Phillips, CBN News.
Well, Chief Political Correspondent David Brody has joined us. Now, David, it seems like there was a big attack against the president. Well, that's what you expect the people to do. But how come they're not putting forth any kind of policy?
Well, Pat, I think it's pretty simple. And the answer is, if the American people knew some of these radical policies the Democrats stand for, they may think twice about voting for them. I mean, look, think about it. I mean, are you going to get up on stage and say we're for late-term abortion, the Green New Deal? Kamala Harris has talked about ICE being like the KKK. They're for immigrants, benefits for illegal immigrants in the country. So, I mean, if you kind of go through all of this part and parcel, you have a Democrat Party that you have to wonder, whether or not they want to even go there with any of this. And kind of brings me back to the theme of this whole week, Pat, which, if you notice, the Democrats pretty much have gone for that Rust Belt voter. They are trying to go as center as possible here, even though the agenda is far left. They need those Rust Belt voters in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. That's the bread and butter. And look, from a white Catholic standpoint, remember, Donald Trump did well with white Catholics in 2016. Hillary Clinton was down in Pennsylvania and Michigan, Wisconsin. Those are the voters to watch for in these next few months.
David, Kamala Harris is being positioned as a moderate. Is she really? Well, what does she actually stand for?
Well, I think it's a good question, Pat. And, I've gone over about 6 to 7 hours of tape in the last 4 or 5 days or so of Kamala Harris's interviews. I've actually been watching them. Of course, my wife is looking at me going, why are you watching 7 hours of Kamala Harris? Can we have dinner? But anyhow, beyond the family issue there, look, the truth of the matter is that she positions herself very well. She's very liberal, but if you listen to the interviews, she very rarely kind of goes out there on a limb and doesn't commit necessarily to anything. So if you look at GovTrack, a 2019 GovTrack, not survey, but an actual list of who's the most liberal senator out there, Kamala Harris is number one, more than Bernie Sanders, more than Elizabeth Warren. And part of the reason for that is that only 15% of the time she worked across the aisle. So, look, she's very, very liberal. The Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which we've heard a lot about, that would basically help religious expression in this country, she wants to narrow that. It's a bill she actually introduced. And then even as California Attorney General, when she was doing that back in the day, she supported an act. And as a matter of fact, she proposed and actually fought for an act that would allow for pregnancy centers, pro-life pregnancy centers. They would actually have to say, hey, abortions are also available in the state. She wanted pro-life pregnancy centers to do that. Turned out it was struck down at the Supreme Court. So there's a whole litany of things here in Kamala Harris's resume.
She supports what's called the Green New Deal, but they're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar expense, including refitting every office building. But does that mean they're not going to use any fossil fuels at all? How extensive is this so-called Green New Deal?
Well, it's trillions and trillions of extensive reworking of the entire economy, Pat, as you know. And so this isn't just a bill that would become law and just continue to run up the deficit. I mean, this is a totally dismantling of the U.S. economy to the likes we've never seen before. And so this is what Kamala Harris does support. Joe Biden supports it, too. And guess what? AOC, and we know about her, she's the leader here on all of this. And there's even been talk about if Biden wins the presidency, that she could potentially be EPA administrator. AOC is EPA administrator. So this is what you have potentially to look forward to if Biden wins.
It's a frightening prospect, how to scare your children at night. But, I mean, we can't use any fossil fuels. We can't use oil. We can't use, what is it? All our power is going to come from wind turbines or solar? Where do we get our electricity?
Well, you know about what they said about cows, how cows are no good. I won't go into exactly why cows are no good. You can look it up on the internet. But beyond all of that, they want to have mass transit in terms of rail around America eventually. In other words, eventually they like to eliminate air travel. What? Eliminate air travel, and everybody, sorry, I've got to leave for vacation. I've got to go travel to California by train. I mean, what in the world? Anyhow, this is what's going on. Look, I will say one thing real quick on Kamala Harris last night. I want to give her some props. I thought her speech was very good. She's a very good politician, but sometimes you have to be careful. You know, sometimes what looks good as a meal, kind of like a Big Mac, hey, it looks great, but it might not digest as well later on.
Well, she's a protege of Willie Brown, who was Speaker of the House in Sacramento, and they were... can you use the term lover? What were they? I mean, they were romantically attached, weren't they?
Well, I can tell you this, that the media is not going to go there. They won't even go down that road. I mean, look at the Tara Reade situation, the Joe Biden allegation against him from Tara Reade. Now, this is someone that Kamala Harris had said that women should be believed, and that she wanted to hear more from Tara Reade, and now all of a sudden she's on the ticket with Joe Biden. So I don't expect the media to go there like they did with Donald Trump and others.
Thanks for your insights. Well, folks, in other news, violent crime is skyrocketing in our cities, and local police are overwhelmed. But there's some good news in the effort to roll it back. John Jessup has more on that.
Thanks, Pat. Attorney General Bill Barr is announcing early success in Operation Legend. Since its July launch, the enforcement campaign has produced more than 1,000 arrests, at least 217 people charged with federal crimes, and the confiscation of nearly 400 firearms. The federal government sent about 1,000 additional agents to 9 cities, with the FBI, ATF, DEA, and U.S. Marshals working alongside local enforcement on violent crime and homicides. The government also made available about $80 million in grants for hiring more law enforcement and for technology to help solve gun crimes. Well, what's being called a siege of lightning strikes is adding to the inferno devouring California. Hundreds of wildfires have been burning across the state, and some have linked up, creating massive spans of flames called complexes. Near Vacaville, northeast of San Francisco, multiple fires are tearing through communities, so far leaving nearly 50,000 acres scorched and thousands of people ordered to evacuate. In Napa, more than 46,000 acres have burned, threatening at least 2,000 homes. And Pat, near Santa Cruz, 22 fires have melded together.
Well, it's a horrible situation, and we certainly need to pray and help for our people in California. But this is triple-digit temperature, unprecedented, adding to these fires, and out of it comes so much heat that it generates tornadoes. It's just a triple, solar punch to the people living in that state.